Spending almost 4,300 Australian dollars, which is roughly 3,000 USD on an endurance bike in order to make it a race bike. Did this big risk pay off, or am I just some YouTube dickhead with first world cycling problems? That is the question we are going to uncover in today's video, ladies and gentlemen. So behind me here, you can see the BMC Roadmachine 012, BMC's endurance road bike designed for everyday all-round road cycling with the ability to take it off-road thanks to its tyre clearance optimised for 32mm, but it will apparently fit up to 40mm tyres. However, nowhere on the BMC website, nor in their marketing spiel, does it say race bike. Of course, if you go to the website, you'll find fast, you'll find speed, but not race ready or anything along those race lines. I mean, why would you choose to race on this bike right here when BMC have the relatively new aero race focused Team Machine R and an updated Team Machine SLR01 coming down the line soon? I'll tell you why. External to the people that were requesting this video under the recent race report video I did, and this is the blatant truth, BMC are a partner of this channel, have been for a number of years, and I wanted or needed an interesting story to tell. So I was willing to sacrifice my performance after months of grueling training at Australia's toughest one-day bike race earlier this year called the Grafton to Inverell, a 230-kilometre beast of a race with almost 3,500 metres of climbing. But here's the thing, after spending 4,300 on upgrading this endurance bike to make it race ready, and I'll get to those exact upgrades shortly, I just may have uncovered a proposition that best suits my race/fast bunch riding needs and maybe even yours too. I mean, do you suffer from poor flexibility? Do you have bad hip rotation? Do you hunch your back a little bit or round your shoulders? I mean, do you even have some genital itching? I mean, I do. And if any of that sounds familiar, please lean in here a little, as expert bike fitter Neil Stanbury explains why this endurance bike race idea could be one more people need to consider. Although there are two major issues or considerations you need to be aware of if you're going to go down this path. But Neil first.
So what I find compared to the Team Machine is it's way easier for me to put my hand down there. So I'm riding a lot more down there.
So that's only 10 mil of height.
10 to 15.
10 to 15. It doesn't look like it's on the edge of being a race position in any sense. Like
so Chris Miller said I adopted
a modern aero position, ultimately.
He might have been very kind.
Okay.
Last time I saw you here, which was before Grafton, you were much more forwardly rotated than this. I remember looking at you thinking, shit, that's the best I've ever seen you.
Yes, it was.
And this is kind of back to how you were.
My hips are tight again, I'm not stretching.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
So obviously the stretching is paying dividends, and you're less symmetrical than last time as well.
Right.
So the mobility, obviously the stretching through your sacroiliac joints, your back, your hips, the worse it gets, the worse your symmetry gets. I think your MC is 3 mil too low. What do you think, viewers? But this is where he prefers it. So really the big one is the stack height on this frame. So you're running this 10 to 15 millimeters higher, the bar center, compared to what you're used to on your old bike. Now, advantages, what it means is that when you're training, when you're doing your big long training rides, you don't have to remain tucked as much. You're probably going to spare your back a little bit. You're not going to be on your limit all the time. When you need to tuck down in the race and go though, this is one of the reasons I like bikes with a reasonably high stack, because when you need to tuck down and go at those key points in the race, when the speed's right up, you're on a descent, you can still drop your elbow, tuck right in and squeeze down into more or less the same position. You know, a 10 or 15 millimeter bar height difference is the difference between that much elbow and that much elbow. Like a tiny change in your posture on the bike, and you're going to end up with the same CDA, the same drag anyway. So for every other situation, when you're sitting 20 wheels deep in the bunch, for example, and there's turbulent air washing all over you, the stack height's going to make almost no difference. The key points in the race though, when you need to tuck down, you still can. So there's really not a lot. Like you could argue there's a tiny difference in the aerodynamics of the frame due to the taller front end, but it's going to be very, very negligible. The rider accounts for almost all of the aerodynamic drag. So I would argue that it's usually not a bad idea to have a bike that's well within your drop limits rather than being right on the edge of it, even when you're racing. That's
Yes.
my take on it. It's possible, yes,
Okay.
especially due to essentially less pain. So
Okay.
if you're, raked out as much drop as you can possibly tolerate, and you're doing a really, really long ride, you're going to get neck discomfort and upper back discomfort and potentially lower back discomfort, which could impact your efforts deeper in the race, theoretically. So it's not a good idea to be right on your edge of what you're capable of. You want to keep the drop and the stack, well within what you're capable of.
So a big shout out to the geometry on the Roadmachine, although keep in mind BMC do consider their fleet of bikes and their brand a performance brand. So the geometry on this endurance bike, say compared to other endurance bikes, is a little bit more aggressive. So if we compare it to the Specialized Roubaix in the same sizing, it has a 15mm higher stack and a 20mm higher stack on the Canyon endurance bike. So the geometry on the Roadmachine is an advantage in my case. And despite the head tube size and the general tube shapes not being overly aerodynamic focused external to the D-shaped back end and drop seat stays, the actual quality and layup of the carbon, according to BMC's head engineer, is at the same level as BMC's top end race bikes external to the KPI surrounding stiffness to weight, which is a good segue into my 1 to 2 issues that I have with this endurance bike if you're going to consider racing on it. The first one is the weight. This medium stock Roadmachine 012 with DT Swiss 45mm carbon wheels and Shimano Dura Ace without pedals came in at a touch over 7.5 kilograms, keeping in mind it did come with this precision power meter, as you can see there on the crank. In my own little world from years of testing and riding bikes, around 7.5 is okay for, general sort of riding, fast group riding, etc. But when I want to really target a race and be specific, particularly when I'm at my leanest I can possibly be body weight wise, I ideally want my bike to be closer to 7 kilos, especially when it's not an aero bike. The other issue I have with this bike is the gearing. It's just out of the box, not set up for racing, with a 50-34 front chainring and an 11-34 on the rear, meaning you've only got a 50-11 as your top gear, which is just not enough to pedal at speed down descents. Additionally, I prefer a 50mm profile rim at least for racing, even racing with a lot of climbing, which is what this one had. And finally, I need or want a 165mm crank because of my hip mobility issues. So here's what we did. The chain rings needed to be upgraded for a larger gearing. I would have preferred a 53, but given stock availability, we went for the 52-36, which worked out fine for this particular race. While Aaron from BS16 was in there, we changed the cranks over to the O'Leary carbon 165mm cranks, which are well known for the weight savings they can provide and additional stiffness to the ride feel. We swapped the wheels out for some deeper profile and lighter rims, being the Creative Ultras, with a staggered 50mm on the front and 58mm on the rear. And I did head back in to see Aaron just before the race to get some Continental GP 5000 TTTRs, tubeless, fitted on the rims, and no race bike of mine would be complete without the... Those changes not only made the endurance Roadmachine more race ready, it also knocked off close to half a kilo, which is a massive weight differential and gave me all the confidence I needed going into the race. But here's the clincher, making all those changes costs a lot of coin. Enough coin for people to balk at. However, for me, I feel like I've stumbled onto a winner here, taking an endurance bike and setting it up to race on. For a longer style road race has proven to be a winner. At this particular event, I finished 4th overall and 3rd in my age group, which for me was a bloody top result, and I could not fault the bike at all. It was incredibly comfortable, it climbed like an all-round race bike, and rolled in the breakaway group without me ever thinking I was on something slower than the rest. I'd say the only slight drawback was I felt on some of the descents those on the aero bikes were a little faster, but honestly nothing to worry about, and the comfort in the saddle for 6 hours and the more relaxed geometry meant that at the end of the race I was less fatigued and able to deliver high and sustained bursts of power for prolonged periods. Yes, the training and the nutrition was there, but I'm sure the bike helped. If you got value from this video today, please don't forget to give this dickhead a like, helps the channel out. Be greatly appreciated, and I will catch you in the next video.